Yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Last Word in Music. And today we are going to be discussing and rating the new mixtape. And I say mixtape in quotation marks because it's kind of an interesting title to give this project. But the new mixtape by NF called Clouds. And the reason I'm putting quotation marks next to mixtape is it's not necessarily a mixtape. Mixtapes are like what, five, six tracks, maybe even less. It's just something to kind of like tide fans over until an artist can, get the whole project out. This was a 10-track album or not album. This was a 10-track project over 40 minutes long. And it was somewhat cohesive in all the songs that were put into it. But what I will say about NF calling this a mixtape is it's not as cohesive as his previous projects. It's not as cohesive as Mansion, Therapy Session, Perception, or The Search, all four of his last albums. Um, and it's shorter. It's a shorter project than all of those other ones. So I understand why NF calls it a mixtape in that sense. Now, getting to the mixtape itself, it does what you think it would do in an NF project. It continues his narrative, how he's dealing with his mental health, how he's dealing with living with his fame and trying to keep himself grounded. Bunch of songs kind of encapsulate those themes perfectly, like Clouds, like That's a Joke, like Just Like You, Layers. Great songs that all kind of encapsulate that central theme and kind of build off of stuff he has said before. With that being said, though, his sound is evolving to like another level, and it's amazing to hear, especially from a guy who's been an NF fan for a few years now. I'm talking about tracks like Story, Lost, Trust, Clouds. I mean, Clouds is kind of a mimic of the intro tracks, but it's so different and kind of more intense than the intro tracks, if that's even possible, because we all know NF's intro tracks are really, really cinematic and intense. And even Layers was a nice little switch up. NF has gotten so much into this sort of cinematic production. And it's really compelling to listen to because you almost feel like you're watching a movie trailer while you're listening to these songs. And it's orchestral because I mean he's always had like the choirs in the background just like, hyping him up, making it more intense. He's got the little timpani rumbles or bashes that kind of just like create emphasis on everything. But in this, he's full out making a bass line with a cello and violins, and he's got a nice little like ear for some sort of orchestral rhythm or note that he can kind of manipulate to whatever he wants within the track. I think the best example of this is in Lost, where a cello is used for the primary bass line as well as the melody within it. It's fantastic to listen to, especially when you got like the gritty hi-hats and snare drums and 808s going on in the background. It's just very interesting to listen to, especially with how NF kind of how he flows about the track and how he's able to kind of create this like otherworldly atmosphere within his music. It's very compelling and interesting. And I really, really liked how he did that, especially on Lost, but he did it in other songs like Layers and Trust and That's a Joke. If he can continue doing that, he's gonna really, really surprise some people in the future. Um and the re and going back to the whole mixtape thing, it's interesting because he dropped four music videos for tracks in this album. There's 10 tracks in the project. And he for four of the tracks, he had a music video. So I think he's really, really trying to go for like this cinematic viewing of his music. The four songs were Paid My Dues, Trust, no, not Trust, excuse me. Paid My Dues, Lost, Clouds, the title track, and Story. Paid My Dues was just a single that was thrown on there. He dropped it like last year, like right a few or not right after the search dropped, but a few months after the search dropped, just to kind of tide the fans over. Um, and then Clouds was like your typical intro. He's just kind of like he's definitely trying to keep things intense and kind of got this like um the scenery that kind of puts you on the edge of your seat. There's this one scene where he's standing in the middle of the road on the two yellow lines, and he's got cars whizzing by him and just going off to either side. It's phenomenal cinematography. But he's also putting himself in uncomfortable situations throughout the whole music video, which is a metaphor for the song and, you know, obviously his personal narrative, him being uncomfortable with the situations he's in and trying to cope with that. And the other music video that was dropped that, you know, was just whatever for me was Lost, and it was just him and Hobson just walking up a mountain, just like quote unquote trying to like find themselves. And you know, if you've kept up with NF, you'll appreciate it because they got the black balloons on their back, obviously symbolizing their burdens. But other than that, it wasn't really anything of too much substance. I think it was just like, hey, look at me. I'm NF. I'm collabing with Hobson and we're going to do a music video together and it's going to be fun. It was cool to see, but like nothing more than that. But the the by far just the best music video was Story. And without giving too much away, because I really think everyone should experience it for themselves. If you had listened to Story before you watched the music video like I did, I think that's the right way to go because you listen to it and you're so encapsulated. It's such an interesting listen because he's being the narrator of this story where this woman gets caught up in a gas station robbery. And you feel for these characters within the story because of the little details NF sprinkles within throughout the story, because it makes these characters relatable. And it it hits you hard. It really hits you hard because there's real emotions. And the way I've always said this about NF, he's been so good at conveying emotion through his voice, and that's something I really admire about him and love about his music. And the fact that in this song he can do that while at the same time keeping a consistent narration of what is going on is absolutely phenomenal. And watching the music video, it hit that much harder. So I personally, I would listen to the song first and then go watch the music video, but I will say the music video hits harder with the song. It's really something. It'll give you chills at the end. And it's one of his longest songs he's ever had. I think it's a little bit over 5 minutes long. It does not feel like 5 minutes. It feels like a mini movie. It's really, really, really well done. And something I really hope not necessarily he can replicate, but something he can um try and do something like in the future, because I don't want him to just kind of like make up these random scenarios in his head and just narrate it for us, but I want him to kind of exercise his storytelling a little bit more. You know, we've seen flashes in the past on a few of his albums, most notably Therapy Session, in which he talks about his mother and How Could You Leave Us, and kind of how he had to cope with growing up with a drug addict and kind of a bad mom. But it sure was something to kind of hear this story play out from not even his perspective, but just from his narration. So definitely my favorite track from the album in terms of substance. So definitely one, if you haven't checked out, if you're not going to check out the album, definitely one just to check out on your own. um Last thing for the goods in this review is a controversial subject, because everyone knows I'm a huge Eminem fan and I will defend Eminem till the day he dies. I think he's the greatest rapper of all time in terms of lyricism, in terms of storytelling, in terms of speed rapping, in terms of almost everything. But NF right now, if we're talking about right now, 2021, NF is the best speed rapper in the game right now. And I'm not going to say that he's the best all time because I don't think he's close there yet because he hasn't been in the game for that long. But if he can continue with what he's doing right now and what he has shown, especially in this mixtape, what he has shown, I think he can get up there someday. I really, really do. If you look at songs like Trust with Tech Nine, he goes bar for bar with Tech Nine. Tech Nine, one of the greatest speed rappers of all time. You look at Lost in which he absolutely spits and flows over this encapsulating production that's going on in the background. You look at That's a Joke, in which the second verse, I don't think he takes a breath. It is unreal to listen to. And there's content in there as well. And that's the thing I appreciate the most. That's why I won't say that Eminem is the best of this generation right now. You know, I'm going to give it to Nate because he's putting bars in there. It's not like filler. It's not him trying to be cute with the rhyme schemes or any. He's putting real stuff in there. Even in Paid My Dues, the second verse is triple it, triple it, triple it, triple it. And he's sustaining it. And it's unreal to listen to. And that's why I'm giving him the crown. Because of this mixtape, I'm giving him the crown right now. He is the best speed rapper in the game right now. However, I do have my fair share of issues with this mixtape. Now, what I will say, just to start off, this wasn't my biggest issue, but one issue I have, he got outperformed by both his featured artists on here. Tech Nine and Hopsin outperformed him, flat out, point blank, period. Now, Tech Nine, there's a little bit of an argument there. I can understand the argument. Personally, I like Tech Nine's verse better. Nate did go bar for bar with him in terms of speed. I like Tech Nine just in terms of what was trying to be accomplished on the track. I like Tech Nine better. On Lost, Hopsin outperformed him. Nate did great. Don't get me wrong. Nate was awesome on the track. He did his thing. He was able to convey his message. Hopsin outperformed him in terms of intensity, in terms of lyricism, in terms of flow. Hopsin outperformed him. And honestly, if I'm Nate, I'm taking that personally because this is the first time I've seen this many features. It was only 2 features. First time I'm seeing this many features on any project NF has ever had. And he got outperformed by both of them. That's not necessarily a good look, but I mean, I'm willing to overlook it just because of how big a fan I am and because Nate on those tracks actually held his own. However, what I will say is that my biggest issue with this project is the filler songs. It's a mixtape and it's got 2 filler songs, Drifting and Prideful. And not to say they're bad songs, they're filler songs. You know, when I talk about a filler song, it's something that is near and dear to an artist that's easy for them to write about, and they can just churn out a song and put it out there. I get it in albums. There are in albums all the time. You know, I look at I look at any album from the past few years from Eminem. He's got a ton of filler songs in there. Just to use him as an example because it's an easy example for me. He's got a lot of songs in there about toxic relationships and how he copes and deals with them and how, oh, this person's horrible, but I love you because I can't get, like, he's got buckets and buckets of information and bars to just put out there for us and put in the song. And you know what? That's fun. That's fun. I don't honestly have an issue with it in albums as long as they're kind of few and far in between and the album has a decent duration. So it's not something I have to listen to a lot if I want to re-listen to the album. However, this is a mixtape, man. You self-titled this a mixtape. And there's 2 songs in here about just little things. And I've kind of figured out NF's types of filler songs are about little personality traits about someone else or little personality traits about himself that he doesn't like and wish he wants to change, or little things that he can contemplate and overthink. And it's not that fun to listen to, especially like over and over and over again, because we've heard it all before, you know, all the way dating back to his first album, Mansion, and especially in Therapy Session, and especially in Perception. probably one of his most critically acclaimed albums, Perception. And, that's not any hate to Perception. I actually really like it as an album, but there's a lot of filler songs in there in which he contemplates and in which he kind of, brings up these topics of, oh, well, there's these issues and these issues that I don't really like and I don't really know what to do. And it's hard for me to, there's some level of realness in there, but at some point it's like, yeah, we get it. There's nothing we can do about these things you don't like. We're sorry that we're human. That's something we all have to cope with eventually. And just to hear two of them on a mixtape of all things, it didn't really catch my vibe. So other than that, it was a phenomenal mixtape. If I were to give it a rating, I'd probably give it a 7.5 out of 10. If I were to put it ranked in his discography, it'd probably be number 2, right behind The Search. I think The Search is still towering above as my number 1. But I think NF dropping this gave his future music some real potential. I think that if he can kind of replicate the sounds that he had in probably his best tracks since since like a year and a half ago, since The Search dropped, I think he'll be in a good spot for the future. If he can just keep churning out kind of like the cinematic and orchestral production and, continue spreading his message, but not in like an oversaturated way, I think he'll be in a great position for his next album whenever he decides to come out with it. Anyways, thank y'all for watching, man. Hey, if you liked it, let me know down in the comments. If you like clouds, let me know. If you didn't like clouds, if you think I'm an idiot, please let me know. I love hearing your criticism. If you enjoyed this review, please leave a thumbs up. Thank y'all for watching, man. This has been The Last Word Music.